Yeah, my name is Barry Julian. I'm a resident of Arizona for about 45 years. I'm currently a university development rep for Grand Canyon University. I'm also a real estate broker. I've been my own broker since 2008. I do a lot of commercial and residential, agricultural and farming types of transactions. But yeah, I've lived in Tucson here now for 4 years. I've been back and forth from Phoenix in Tucson about a few different times. But yeah, grew up, raised here in Phoenix, and been here ever since. I actually grew up in a Jewish household. My mom was Jewish on her side of the family. My dad was kind of atheist. I mean, he wasn't really atheist, but he wasn't really anything. So I actually had a bar mitzvah at age 13. Went to Hebrew school, grew up going to Hebrew school. I learned how to read out of the Torah from right to left. Yeah, all my friends, went to my bar mitzvah. I actually had to ask the rabbi one year, my varsity year, if I could play on a Friday night because it was Rosh Hashanah. It was Rosh Hashanah, and I got the clearance to go play on a Friday night, and I had 15 scouts in the stands from Division I schools. So I'm glad I showed up. We beat the #1 team in the state that night, by the way. But yeah, it was real interesting. So after I had my bar mitzvah from age 13 to about age 18, 19, when I got to college, I was kind of in that searching mode. I was kind of like, hey, there's something more out there. There's something else out there. So yeah, it was interesting. I actually, when I got to U of A, met a couple great Christian players who I didn't know at the time were involved at FCA. They invited me to FCA. That's kind of how we all got started at U of A. It was just kind of beginning at the time. There was about 8 of us. We had 2 coaches running it. But yeah, that's how I found Christ. For me, it was all about, okay, I'm actually pretty good at football and maintaining my scholarship. I'm thinking NFL now. Let's go try out. So I graduated. At the time back then in the early 90s, there wasn't like the elaborate combine camps and all that they have now. But I did go to like El Segundo, California. I tried out with about 5 different teams. The Chargers actually invited me to go to their preseason workout camps, which at the time, I'm standing in a room with like 15 other guys that are all playing my same position. I'm like the 3rd smallest guy in the room. So, there had to have been a better way to make a living. Canadian football was real popular at the time. I got offers to go up there. It was like $30,000 a year, and they would give you a summer job. So I mean, I knew at that point that football was kind of over with. I said, it's time to join the real world. Actually, my first job out of college, I got the job as a head resident in a dormitory and assistant football coach at Arizona Western College down in Yuma. Wow. I said, let's do it. I had no expenses. I was living in the dorm for free. I was just kind of socking away money, and yeah, I had a lot of different jobs in and after that, but yeah. I think, like I said, God's always had his hand on me, and you look back on it, you're like, I would have liked to have known right out of college what my one profession was going to be. And I filled out a ton of W-9s and I filled out a lot of stuff for it. But at the end of the day, I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I know why now he gave me that experience doing that, right? In coaching, it was to disciple young men. It was when all the other coaches were out there cutting players, I didn't believe in cutting them. And because even though I had 20 or 30 kids on my sideline that never played, I'd rather have them practice with me all day long as opposed to going home, getting in trouble, playing video games, that kind of thing. So that was really kind of nice, and I learned how to do that. But yeah, once I got into the professional world, I had always had a good work ethic, obviously, and so God was always there. He was always there, making sure there was bread on the table for the family, and making sure that the provided was for. But like I said, in about 6 years ago, he said we're going to put maybe your real estate business on hold for a little bit. We're going to put it on the back burner. And we're going to have you focus more on education and helping others get their education. And because at the end of the day, that's what I do. I sell education. And for me, it's all about return on investment. And so I have a huge business background. I bring my MBA into that, and students, teachers, they understand where I'm coming from. So it was a good parlay, a good shift. That's an easy question for me, Trenton, and I'll tell you why. Growing up in a Jewish household, not knowing Christ till I was age 20, I brought the law. I brought works into my relationship, whether it be at the job, whether it be, because for me, even football exacerbated that. It was measure up or you get chopped off. That's how it was, right? I didn't learn grace and mercy till later on, right? I didn't learn to walk in the full measure of God's grace later on. So, for me, I had very high expectations and standards for myself, and I had them for others as well. I didn't allow others to fail as much as I allowed me to fail. I've learned how to just take a deep breath, and I think that a lot of that comes with getting older too. So you sit there and you find in life, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're holding on to something so tight, it's like holding oil in your hand. You just squeeze out, you can't hold it. So yeah, for me, it's easier to let go now. It's just so much more freedom. Lord, you have the kids. You got a control of them. You know the path for them. All I can do is pray. Whether it's the kids in the jail that are sitting there praying for reduced sentences, or so on and so forth. I see it every day, and it's just easier to give it to God and let Him handle it as opposed to trying to control it yourself. To me, when I first became a Christian, it was, hey, I want to celebrate Christmas too. What's the deal, right? I didn't know anything about it, right? I mean, the whole concept of the Trinity in my family went right over everybody's head. So when I became a Christian, there was a lot of friction in our home, a lot of friction, like a lot of non-communication for years. Yeah. So, for young kids nowadays though, you've got to only be concentrated on what God thinks. I mean, there's all the bullying, there's all the stuff in schools, what teachers, there's a lot of peer pressure to fit in. Don't have to go with the flow. It's okay to be different. And I know that's hard. I see it from the outside, kids trying to be different, and there's a lot of pressure on them. I sit through this leadership course, and I think nowadays the statistic is only 6% of kids kind of find religion interesting, right? Like church is something of importance to go to. I don't know. I always kind of believed just going to church was like going to everyday work. Tithing was just like writing your mortgage check every week. So that's got to be passed on down. That you've got to be able to send the elevator back down for those to pick them up, just like somebody sent it for me. My name's Barry Julian. I've been rebirthed.